You're tuned in to RX Radio.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to RX Radio. Today's podcast, I sat down with Jorge de Hoyos. He's been on the podcast with me before, a handful of times actually. Jorge, he lectures our level 1 course. So if you're in the level 1 right now, you'll be seeing him in the lectures. And he's been doing the in-person events with us for a while now. Always love sitting down with Jorge. We had a really good conversation this time. We talked about how our past experiences in the gym help impact the way that we coach. We've both learned a lot of lessons the hard way. We kind of talked about how training age can impact the mindset around the clients that you're training. So it was a really good conversation with Jorge. So that's what you have to look forward to in terms of what we have going on with Prescript. Keep your eyes peeled. We have a webinar coming up with Dr. Dwayne Jackson about gut health, and we have 2 courses coming up in November. We have Phil Smith doing our performance nutrition course, and then of course Dwayne Jackson with the gut health course. So if you're interested in those, head on over to www.pre-script.com. Go ahead and drop your email on our email list, and you'll get notified when those are up for sale. Other than that, I hope you guys enjoy the podcast. Thanks for listening. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to RX Radio. Myself, Jordan Jiunta, here with my close friend, Jorge de Hoyos. Second time on the podcast. Thanks for being here, man. Actually in person, too. That always makes it better.
Second time in person. Hopefully we get a smooth one.
Yeah. So, yeah, third time recording, second in person. Jorge and I recorded a podcast about, 2 weeks ago now?
On my birthday, yeah.
On your birthday, yes, happy birthday. And my laptop completely died about 2/3 of the way through. We were probably about 45 minutes into it, and it just died. So here we are, recording even better in person. So welcome, man. Thanks for being here.
Happy to be here. Always good to come with the friends, work out, talk some topics that just getting big, you know?
That's it, man. That's it. To describe my relationship with Jorge to anyone who has spent less than 2 minutes around us, endless competition, I think is a good way to put it. I think when we recorded last time, I called you my arch nemesis.
Yeah.
You know, not in the worst way, but in like a friendly competition way. Jorge has about 20 kilos on me, and my goal is to be larger than him.
You know, it's a friendly competition that might become unhealthy.
Absolutely.
But while we're on the podcast, I want to make a statement and let people know, looking at the camera, Jordan Jiunta will never be as big as I am, ever.
Oh, that hurts. That hurts. I'll at least have Marshall make me out-angle you on every piece of film that ever goes out on the internet. So, like, only the people that see us next to each other in person will be the ones that know that. And Marshall, for the podcast thumbnail, I need you to Photoshop Jorge's arms onto my body.
And this is this is what we agreed on last time. At least if he's getting my arms, I'm getting his calves somewhere in a shot.
Anyways, so Jorge's here today because he's now new to our level 1 instructor staff. So this semester, level 1 is your first teaching the live lectures for us. Last one actually went down yesterday, so you guys will get this. He'll be about 5 weeks deep by the time you hear it. How's it going so far?
It's good. It's been a crazy thing just to be a part of like the initial L1s coming out online, and then just like getting involved in the community and just little by little getting to know the people, getting to know you guys, and now just being a part of like the staff that's going to be teaching it. It's fun. It's like a little still like not fully believing that I get to do this for a living, kind of like what you put in your post the other day, you know. But it's fun that we can get to just share the things we've like learned through all these years from all the people we meet at the live events and all this stuff, and then just spread it to people all over the world, which is kind of where Prescript is at now, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, it's been nuts. Just meeting like-minded people, share the same passion. It's a lot of fun. And the thing that's unique about you, kind of to, I don't know, I'd say at least your immediate family, is that you come from a family of lawyers and politicians. Yeah. Is that a safe thing to say? Yeah. Like literally, are we safe to say that?
Yeah, we're safe to
say.
Okay.
So taking this career path is a little bit different than, I'm sure, what your father had mapped out for you.
Yeah.
So can you kind of tell me a little bit about that, as how you got into this and what made you make the switch into education and training and coaching?
Yeah, I mean, fitness is something that's always been like a passion of mine, something that I love. But if anyone's listening in from any like Latin American country, you'd know that it's hard to make it a career as a career, you know? And if you do, you kind of have to have something on the side or something like that. And then just going along and being able to, like, I moved to Canada, I went to school for like economics, statistics, all this stuff. And then like meeting people that like were more in this space and seeing how in other parts of the world it's now being done as a career. And then eventually being led to like, okay, higher education kind of stuff. And it doesn't just have to be like, I don't know, reading a magazine and then working out at a gym. And then eventually, like, I found Prescript, more stuff. People are doing it in person. People are doing it online. And eventually, just like, I think the people in the community made it a lot easier for me to transition. And yeah, just it's a hard decision to make eventually, like, especially like if all the people you know and you've grown up with are like following a different type of life. But now I get to do what I like, and I get to travel around and then work out with friends and just eat food. So I'm loving the life.
Yeah. And that's something that we've seen like time and time again, is people that are high performers in different areas and they start to bring that into the fitness industry and the coaching space, is that we work with a lot of people that have an education that's probably not super typical of someone that would end up in the fitness industry, but they're very passionate about fitness. They've gone to school, they've learned how to learn, maybe learned how to teach, and then they start to apply those concepts to their own training. And then through that, you understand that you can make a living out of this if you do it well. And it seems to be those people that outperform because they're doing it from an educated standpoint, and then they're combining that with passion and then providing a really good service.
Yeah, and I think we talked about it yesterday when we were like in the car and just talking around, that I think the thing that brings a lot of us together in Prescript is that like we're trying to learn, we're trying to do like apply these new concepts, but like we're still doing the thing, you know? We're still like everything we learn, we try to like bring it into the gym floor and see how does this work for us? How does this work for our clients? And it's just like we're not just in like the gym, not like empirically learning, but we're also not just like reading research and then just posting it up on social media. So we're like bringing it down and seeing how can this be part of the context which I operate in, and then just try to like dissect it and make it like applicable for the people that we work with.
Yeah, absolutely. So who's your main clientele?
I have a little bit of a mix right now. Obviously, like I have a lot of gem pop kind of stuff. I have like a decent amount of like bodybuilder-ish type clients. And lately I've been working a lot more with like athletes in different capacities.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was something that I'm starting to explore, but looking forward for it, yeah.
So is that the goal, to move more towards S&C, strength and conditioning for athletics?
Yeah, at the moment I'm looking to get more in the performance realm.
Yeah.
So learning how to work with athletes, learning like the principles that I've learned in biomechanics specifically for how can it work for prep for them, and how can I help. I would like to get involved like in as many circles as I can, and eventually I would like to do the same thing that I could do for Prescript now, which is like bring this type and higher level of education into like Mexico and all these countries that are trying to like do the thing, but I feel like sometimes the information is not fully there, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And anyone listening, pay attention to that framework, starting with general and moving towards hypertrophy, which in my mind is kind of the same thing. Like, unless you're like a professional bodybuilder, but general training is hypertrophy training, and borderline strength training is kind of very much the same thing. So it gives you exposure to people that have no training age. So the cool thing about that is once you start to implement something, you can see changes really quickly, because they're going to have progress really quickly. And then you can take that knowledge and you can apply it to people that are maybe more advanced in training and say, hey, I know this is going to do X, Y, Z. It may take a little bit longer because you've been training for so long, you might not see the results right away, but it's almost this way to A/B test what you're doing and see what kind of results you're getting. And then the more experience with that, you can apply it to higher level clients, higher training age clients, specific populations with maybe injuries and things like that. And then moving towards the sport specific stuff is that you understand how all these things are going to interact with the sport or the end goal where they need to perform. And then you can turn that knowledge into knowledge around performance.
Yeah, that's what I was telling yesterday to the guys at the L1, the first lecture. It's like, we're going to learn a bunch of principles, and the principles are the same for all the people you train, like across the board. it's now your job to just like contextualize who am I training? Does this really matter right now? Does this just matter later on? This is never going to matter for this person. And I feel like once you just get the principles and you get the ones and zeros of the whole operation, it's very easy to just apply it specifically to what you need. And that's how you said, like, it's all like hypertrophy for most people is going to be like kind of what's going to be happening as a progression. And we get like, we always talk about like movement proficiency and all this stuff.
Yeah.
But like principles are the same. We just kind of decide how to apply them, and we just try to make those better decisions faster progress, and kind of like expedite results for our clients. And I feel like if you know the principles, it's just very easy to get from A to B.
Yeah, that's so true. And a question I get relatively often from people that are maybe like peripherally in the space or not as entrenched as we are is, how do you train an athlete differently than you train anyone else? And my answer is typically, you don't. Like, the goal is to get them to understand how to use their body efficiently and effectively. And an athlete's body, yes, they may have specific body types or anatomical variations that set them apart from, Susie in accounting. But at the same time, is if they understand how to use their body, how to create stability, express force, absorb force, then they're going to be more proficient at the thing that they're trying to direct that into. So it's really just learning how to use your body efficiently and effectively.
Yeah, and I feel like that's like, if you're a good coach and you know how to like take a good assessment, like, okay, history, medical history or movement history, all this stuff, and you just understand, do we have a goal? Do you have a time frame? Do we have like certain limitations at the moment? Literally the same framework that would apply to your random person you train at a Good Life, and the same thing would apply if you're training an NFL athlete. Same questions, you just kind of have to fit it to whatever they're working with.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing that I find incredibly valuable about you is that you're born in Mexicali? Yeah, lived there your whole life?
Basically.
Yes. Yeah, so you're bilingual.
Yeah.
And we're in this you're in this space with the opportunity to start to spread that to the Spanish-speaking community, right? Something that not many people probably know is that Jorge has actually translated all of our curriculum, level 1 curriculum, into Spanish. And that's a project that we're currently working on. I think the part that's it's giving us a little bit of resistance, there's a little bit of friction there, is that maybe in Mexico, the strength training or coaching community isn't as far along as it is in the States or in Canada as well. So what's the state of the industry in Mexico right now?
Lately, I've been like getting involved with more and more people that are looking for like higher education or higher degrees of knowledge, if you will, and how to apply it. But yeah, just like the source, I've seen like some of like the mainstream English, I don't know what we want to call them, like influencers or educators, come into the space in Mexico even. Some people know English, they'll do that. Some people have like translators going on, but it's very, how to say it, it's not principle driven, like kind of what we're doing, right? So that's what I find very unique. And I think that eventually when people realize that if you're able to just learn the basic stuff, you'll be able to apply it to everything. That's where they'll find value, and that's when this, like, we'll get the ball rolling into all of this stuff. But yeah, the fitness industry right now is probably a lot of what we have in the States like a couple of years ago. It's like a lot of bro science and a lot of people reading research, and sometimes not finding the common ground in between those two,
Right.
Just like extrapolating, I don't know, ideas or concepts, and still in the process of figuring out like where's the application in all of this. I think a lot of it is well intended. I think a lot of people are trying to do the thing. They're just like missing the link. And I mean, sadly, as everyone in the world, a lot of people, it's not well intended, just trying to make money, or just like, I look good, I can sell programs.
Right.
And sadly, that's what a lot of people buy into. Just the guy with the six pack, the girl with, I don't know, the bikini or whatever. But there's definitely people that are looking for more. And I've been trying to like get involved with those people just to like start spreading that community back there,
Yeah, that's great. And that's it doesn't sound very different from what I see in the States, is that these new trainers, a lot of times they get into it because they're passionate about working out, and maybe they look good or they're very strong or they perform well, but they have a sample size of 1, which is themselves. Right. And I think it sounds like a similar type of thing, but the difference is that there's nothing there to bridge that education gap. at this point, right? Is that it's, either full bro science or full research, but the application's not there, right? If the application on the side of bro science is like, this worked for me, I'm going to have you do the same thing, it should work for you. But there's not really that you're not branching off, and you're not basing it off of sound principles that you can transfer and you can adjust based on your population, versus the research stuff is going to be, this theoretically should work. If it doesn't work for you, then I don't know what to do.
Yeah, and I've seen this applied to like even, let's say, more competitive in the bodybuilding world in Mexico, where like a coach or a preparator, whatever they're called there, but it'll be like, okay, this is how I got on stage, 4% body fat and won my first place. I'm going to use the same like program, dieting protocol, PED protocol for the guy who's 100 pounds lighter than I am,
Right.
And I mean, I haven't seen too many people run into issues because they're like, it's a very short-lived thing, but I could definitely see how that's a problem down the line. And that's what I've been trying to like talk to people about when I'm talking to people back home, is that if you just see things as process, or like, okay, what is the framework, what is exactly the step 1 to step 5, and then you talk to someone that does not fit that model, then you kind of don't have anything to work with, instead of what we always talk about, like the system is just critical thinking, understand the things and then just know how to apply them. And you don't have to be stuck with this very, specifically shaped model that if someone does not fit in here,
right,
whatever just goes out the window.
Yeah, that's very rigid. And you make a good point when it comes to like injuries or setbacks.
Yeah.
Is that, and of course, staying within our scope of practice here, but training is a lot of times people's main source of healthcare when it comes to musculoskeletal or like physical pain. And that's the thing that I find different about prescript coaches, is because it's not just a system, it's not this very rigid framework, it's critical thinking, right? Is that, okay, someone's having an issue, you can dive in and you can start to think about, okay, what's contributing to that? How can we start to modify what they're doing in the gym to get rid of their shoulder pain or their knee pain or whatever that might be? And it seems like, just from conversations you and I have had in the past about like, family members of yours that are experiencing musculoskeletal pain, is it seems like there's definitely a gap between the training industry, where the training industry leaves off, and this is true, I think, everywhere, but maybe the gap is a little bit further, where the training industry leaves off and where maybe PT or like the medical system picks up. So it sounds like that's a really big opportunity for trainers that are in that niche, is understanding how you can start to bridge that gap. Is that it doesn't have to be full on, physiotherapy or like PT or medical intervention, but you can actually you can fix a lot of people's problems just by exercising correctly.
Yeah, and I think something that's like super common, at least nowadays, I feel like also here, is that like diagnosis by like some sort of medical professional are almost like a sentence. Like, you have, inflammation in your tendon. That's what you have, that's who you are, and this is what you have to carry with yourself for your whole life.
Yeah.
Instead of just understanding like there's just something that's happening in the moment, and like you said, like understanding what symptoms are you presenting, what does this correlate to with like how do you move, what shapes in your body do we know that are associated with this, what tendencies do you have, and then just kind of like reverse engineering whatever the process is to make you move better, and not just taking it as a lifelong sentence of, I guess this is what I have to deal with forever now.
Right. Yeah, I deal with that all the time in my office, is people that have had some sort of diagnosis and they're like, oh, I've got a bad back now, or I have a bad shoulder or knee, whatever it is. And they accept that, and then they modify their life around that. It's like, okay, my right shoulder doesn't work. Now I have to modify my life to do things that don't involve my right shoulder, as opposed to actually getting to the root of the problem and being able to intervene accurately. Yeah,
I like the car analogies a lot that we sometimes use, and for me, it's crazy when people come to me and like, okay, I have a shoulder issue. Like, okay, tell me more about it. The doctor said like 10 years ago, my left shoulder, this was the problem. And I think like if you go to your car mechanic, it's like, oh, the air conditioning filter's like not work. Like, you have to change it. You don't just stick to that diagnosis for your whole life and just accept that you don't have an air conditioning in your car anymore, right?
Right.
So I feel like the same applies to training, and it's kind of maybe like the fitness industry's fault for like, or medical field, whatever, for like prolonging that idea, but I have seen a lot of people just get better, and I enjoy that process. And I feel like a lot of, like yourself, practitioners or clinicians have adopted that model. Like, you know what, like if I understand principles, if I work with a coach, we can get this person stronger, we can get this person moving, we can get this person progressing. And yeah, I feel like that's something that's definitely moving in the right direction, maybe slowly, but like I feel like we're getting there.
Yeah, I absolutely think so. And then just from things that we've talked about in the past, it seems like a way to gain credibility in that market is working in either the collegiate or the sports setting, which it seems like you're trying to move that direction.
Yeah, we're working out some connections around there, trying to get into like the, let's say working with sports teams, collegiate level schools, even like at one point maybe like getting involved with like high school level and like consulting for them and all this kind of stuff. But I feel like it's a way to buy some credibility, just because, I mean, there are programs that are well established, right? So once you start working with them, and if you can show results, I feel like that just backs you a lot more and just helps you. A lot of people get more buy-in into you if you've worked with people at an accredited, institution.
Right. Yeah, I see that. And that's kind of like we just said, is that it's always going to be harder to get results on high performers because they're already performing at such a high level. So if you can make a change, or you can make a difference in the way that they're moving or the way they're performing on the field, then that shows that, all right, this guy kind of knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
And it's funny to me that it takes that for someone that maybe has no real athletic goals or athletic experience to understand the credibility of someone. I mean, I get it. I definitely get it, because you have to have your shit pretty buttoned up to be able to do that. But at the same time, like we said earlier, is that you can have effects on probably, I'd say 90 or more % of the population just by doing the basics really well. And that's where people make their money.
Yeah. I've had this conversation with some of my friends lately, but they are asking like, okay, what is the thing that you do for this problem? And a lot of times I just realize you're not that weird of a case, you know? Like a lot of people just present the way you are.
Yeah.
And the answer is usually the same for everyone. Just like do the basic things a lot.
Yeah.
And that's generally going to fix most of the problems, or even push you in the right direction for like performance or whatever your goal may be.
Yeah, that's a really good observation, because I think that when people are experiencing pain or discomfort or some sort of injury, it's very in their consciousness, right? That's the number one thing that's on their mind all the time. So they think it's happening to them, and they don't necessarily understand that like this is a pretty common thing. Like just because it's the first time they've experienced it, they don't really understand that, no, this is something that happens really commonly, and people overcome this relatively well with relatively simple interventions, but it's so present in their consciousness that it's hard for them to look at it that way.
Yeah, and kind of talking about the rant you guys went on with Shallow the other day about like boomer fitness and all this stuff. I think a lot of people take like what we see in social media nowadays, like the recovery techniques and all this stuff, and like, okay, I see athletes doing the whatever so method, and I need to apply it to myself, and that's the only way I'm going to get better. And then like we talked yesterday, you just did a meet and you have a problem with your knee, and the how to fix it, like you were competing at a fairly high level. The way to fix it is like the way you would fix anyone else. You don't have to do anything special. You don't have to go like a crazy kind of treatment. You just kind of do the basics again.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, I don't know, get back to healthy-ish.
Yeah. And that's fine. I think the part that takes a little bit more skill is not necessarily fixing the issue, but it's understanding how to train through the issue.
Yeah.
Right? It's understanding that, okay, I have pain, I have an injury, but how can I still have progress in other areas while allowing that to heal, or at least, you know, in my case, not allowing that to get so bad that I can't do the thing that I want to do.
Yeah. I feel like when you work with any type of high performer, or anyone that at least loves working out like we do, if you go to a clinician or a health professional and the answer they give you is just don't do anything for 2 weeks, that's definitely not going to happen.
Right.
And there's a lot of value in just understanding how to navigate around something. And as Mac and Thayer always say, it's like a little step back, not a step away. So a way to keep progressing where there is progression available while assessing and trying to like deal with the problem that we have at hand.
So how do you communicate that to your population?
It's always a tough conversation sometimes, but I try to really bring up the upside that whatever situation is presented can bring. I don't know, maybe we can't push this progression that we wanted, but this is what we can do. We can improve your movement proficiency here. I mean, I don't say these words, but
right.
We can get this skill. We can get you ready for whenever this is like you're fully pain-free, we're really going to be able to push your squat, or we're really going to be able to do whatever. Or this is a really good time for us to get lean like you wanted like a couple months ago. Or this is a really good time for, I don't know, always just like paint a picture of what the upside can be and have them not focus on what they can't do, but what they can do, and really like outlining the path we can get together and how they're going to be in such a better position once we're done. Like, and understanding like, okay, yeah, you may not be able to do something for like 2 months, but like in the grand scheme of things, in a year, is 2 months really going to matter if you don't have this problem you've had for like the last, I don't know, 2 years?
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think any progress in life is linear. I think people like to look at things that way, that progress is just this, you know, I start at point A, I go to point B, and it's just a straight line in between. But literally anything that you do in life, there's going to be peaks and valleys along that. Like Jordan and I run this business, and there are so many fucking valleys. Like there's so much bullshit that we have to deal with. But the general trend is always up, right? If you're doing the right things, the trend is going to be up, but it's not always going to be higher than it was yesterday or the week before or whatever that is. But the thing that I cling to is that there's different areas in which you can have progress, right? Like strength, output, skill, awareness. Awareness is a huge one with like anyone that's been training less than, I don't know, 5 years, I'd say, is like you really just need to build awareness around your body. Like I did a podcast with Killian not too long ago about RPE, like rate of perceived exertion. And that's something that takes a lot of awareness to be able to accurately assign. Is it like day one? No, everything's hard because you suck at everything. And we can have progress in that area of awareness first. We can have progress in terms of capacity to hold positions. We can have progress in terms of overall strength, output, skilled output. So there's all these different ways or pathways that we can create progress, and it's not always related to the thing. Like a personal example for me is that, my knee's fucked. I can't squat with any sort of meaningful intention right now, but I can still have progress in areas that when I get back to squatting, I'm going to be a better squatter because I took a step back and I improved my unilateral hip stability or my single leg stance mechanics or something of that sort, that now I'm going to be more effective when I get back to squatting, as opposed to if I just continue to try and squat every week or every 2 weeks until my knee feels better. And then I'm just kind of at this stagnated place where I'm not having any real forward progress in terms of strength, skill, output, and I'm actually prolonging the recovery time.
And I think that's where it helps to, maybe sometimes awareness isn't enough. I think like in your case, you've competed for a long time, you know where it's time to pull back and like adjust. But sometimes that's not going to be enough for some people. And we talked about this before. This happened to myself, where like I knew what I was doing wasn't fully productive. I was pushing hard all the time, like max everything. And it's hard to see like in retrospective, like these peaks and valleys, like when are they happening? Why are they happening? I may know why they're happening, but I'm not willing to let this go because I like it so much. Like the emotional attachment to training styles or training frequency or intensity or I don't know, nutrition or whatever. And just having like an objective outside eye come in and assess the situation and just say, you know what, like this is what we need to do. This is how we're going to lay it out. And like have that presence, like for myself as a coach, it's usually a coach or like a mentor or whatever you have, but have that person see it objectively and just say that you can't keep doing this if you want progress, which most of us do. And this is kind of what you have to do, and this is kind of how you have to go about it. And if you have the ability, I would say, to just step away and understand that, you know what I love is not the best for me right now, and there's something that I may also love. Which is getting progress, you know? I
love that statement because the emotional attachment comes from a disconnect. It becomes from a misunderstanding of what's going to get them to their goals, right? Is that I work with a lot of people get into weightlifting, which is the population I enjoy coaching the most, but they get into it through CrossFit, right? And they have this emotional attachment to working hard. Even if it's not getting them closer to any of the goals that they have this misunderstanding that hard work equals progress. So if you can outline that there's a disconnect there, right? If you can really outline their goals and come up with very precise goals, then you can start to pull away that emotional attachment and say like, okay, I know you want to work hard, but hard work looks different if this is your goal than it does just by being exhausted in the gym.
Yeah.
Hard work is actually restraint sometimes. It's
Yeah.
you need to be able to pull back so we can have the progress we need so we can push when we need to push. And I think that's something that probably that 5 years or less training age is people just don't understand. They think that they need to go into the gym, they need to do everything on the program no matter what, they need to push as hard as they can every single session. But hard work, it gets you better at working hard, maybe.
Yeah.
But if there's a disconnect between that and your goal, then it's not getting you close to your goal, and it could actually be getting you further away. And that's something that's a conversation that needs to be had, especially early on. That's why, you can make a big difference getting clients with a young training age, is because you can instill the right values around working out.
Yeah.
Is that I mean, we've all been there. You've been there. You just said I've spent too much time there. Especially coming from like a wrestling mindset, wrestling background. It's always work hard. I'm working harder than you, but that's not always the right thing to do. Like you need to. I just talked to someone yesterday who's like in a deficit. They're having pain and they're having a hard time pulling away and stepping back, letting it's like hamstring pain, letting their hamstring pain recover so that they can get back to training. But like if you don't have a goal that has a deadline, like in the near future, you probably shouldn't be training through pain. It's not going to be the most beneficial thing to get you to your goal. So taking that step back that's the hard work. It's it's mentally hard. It's not scratching that mental itch of I need to fucking send it every time I'm in the gym. But hard work can be doing less.
Yeah, especially like we're talking for some sort of like, when I say high performers, I don't even mean people that have to compete in any discipline. It's just people that love to do this, are going to push as hard as they can at any session. That restraint is going to be important. And sometimes the hard work will be like the stuff you don't see. We also talked about this before, but just, okay, are you going to bed on time? Are you eating the foods you got to eat? Are you drinking water?
Yeah.
Because for a lot of us, pushing hard at the gym is not an issue. It's probably the easiest part of the day. And then the rest of it is what, if we did with as much importance as we do the things we do in the gym, we'd probably be a lot further along the way.
Yeah.
So I think that it's easy for people, especially like younger people nowadays with social media, to just see the super hard every set, all this, run through a wall.
Right.
And then you see the gains or you see the PR, so you see all this, and you don't see all the stuff that happens behind the scenes that is essential for these people to be there, at least if you want to do it for somehow of a long time.
Right. Yeah. Longevity is the name of the game. You need to be able to keep training and training in a way that's going to get you closer to your goals for a long period of time to be able to get good at anything. And I think you bring up an interesting point about social media, is that you don't see that on social media, right? Is that no one's going to double tap you going to bed at 8:30 so you can wake up at 5:30 rested. Yeah. Like no one gives a shit about that. They're going to double tap the heavy lifts and the PRs and like the shredded person. And it's unrealistic to think that you can be that all the time, but that's always in everyone's face, right? That's what you see. And it's not, you don't see, I'm better about posting on social media now, but like there would be 6-month times where I just wouldn't post my training because it's the boring shit. It's me doing things that I'm doing walking lunges with 120-pound dumbbells. I'm doing like, toes to bar and like shit like that. That's going to make me better 6 months from now. But no one wants to see me doing that. Like and I don't like to use myself as like I'm the end all be all example, but understanding the process is kind of what I'm getting at. And I think another interesting point on top of that is if you're hiring a coach to oversee this stuff for you, you need to listen to the fucking coach. Like it comes down to trust, right? Is that you need to trust that they have your best interest at heart. And they're not telling you this just because they want to hold you back or whatever it is, but you kind of need to overcome that ego of I need to train hard today to get to where I want to go. It's that I trust that Jorge is going to tell me the things that are going to get me there, even if I don't like doing it.
Yeah, like just like that, the boring stuff, all this work. I've been asked a bunch, like, why don't you just post your workouts every week? It's the same, literally, as last week. And maybe I got like one more rep with that, and not all the time. And I think I got a lot of people asking, like, okay, what's the best? I don't know, the best chest program. I'm like, is this the best exercise? All this stuff. And I think Bulgaria has talked about. I don't even know who's mentioned it on the team, but like people act as if the gains were like limited to this period of time, and like if you don't do all the things for the max gains in, I don't know, 2 months, the gains are gone forever. And instead of thinking about what are all the good things, what is it, the qualifier for something to be in your routine, whether like workout or food, should not be like, is this good? Because a lot of things are going to be good, and then you're going to be doing all the good things. But a lot of the good things may not be right for you right now. It's not about good. It's like, is this what I need at the moment? And how can this, like, that's where the coach's eye comes in. How is this going to affect me like down 3 months, 6 months, a year? Am I going to be able to keep this up? Is this going to just throw me off a cliff?
Yeah.
And am I going to have to, like, I don't know, rest for like 2 months because now my shoulder's done or whatever?
Yeah, sustained, repeatable effort is what's going to get results.
Yeah.
And that means a lot of different things for a lot of different people, but that's specific to your goals, right? And I've been the same way. One that I bring up a lot is, have you ever heard of the Smolov squat program?
Yeah.
I wish it never existed. If you do the Smolov squat program, I hate you. I'm sorry. I don't hate you as a person. I just hate the way that your brain works. But it's this like incredibly high volume, high intensity squat program that anyone who does like weightlifting has probably tried at some point in their life, and they get incredible results the first time that they do it.
Yeah.
Because they've never incurred a training stimulus or a stress like that, and it's incredibly stressful. And then they're usually pretty fucked up after it. So it'll take some time, they'll do whatever, maybe sort it out, maybe not. And then they'll try it again another 6 months down the road because they think that, okay, this got me, this added, 40 kilos to my back squat. I'm going to do it again. I'm going to get another 40 kilos. But in reality, the thing is, this isn't something that's repeatable and sustainable. So maybe one time, you survived it, good. Move on with your life and understand how you can continue to have progress training without incurring that much stress, because I wouldn't even call it maximal effective dose. It's just maximal dose is what it is.
Pretty much.
Where this is maybe what a human can sustain, and not many people make it through without failing. But switching that mindset to what is the minimal effective dose that can continue to get me to train, continue to get me closer to results with incurring as little collateral as possible. Because that's the thing, is that if you just do everything all the time, yes, you're going to have progress until the amount of collateral that you're incurring interferes with the amount of training you can do. And then once you get to that point, it's like, all right, now we really need to make some modification around this, and we need to be a little bit more mindful and specific around how we're allocating stress in our training. And that's the maturity part of training that a lot of people, they'll never get to on their own, because you need a different perspective than the one that you've been taking. So unless you're like very self-aware around this, you're not going to get there on your own. So having a coach that's there to look out for you and be like, yo, dude, this is fucking insane. Yeah. Like, you cannot continue to do this to yourself, or else you're just going to die and you won't be in the gym a year from now, 2 years from now. So it's having that long-term perspective on it, that, okay, we're training, but if you want to train for the rest of your life, we can't do this, right? I'm 33 now, and I'm lifting more weight than I've lifted my entire life. Like that, I never had that perspective, in my 20s, like, oh, I want to be lifting more weight when I'm 33. I want to be lifting more weight 8 weeks from now. 12 weeks from now. And I think it's hard for people to really have that type of foresight when they don't have some sort of outside perspective or guidance.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Smolov, because I remember when I was in university,
yep,
like
let's hear
5 of my friends did Smolov, but they just took the progressions, took squat out, inserted bench.
Of course, yes, bench. Everyone does that.
And then I remember thinking, this seems like, I don't know about this. They ran it once, and they got 40 pounds on their bench. I'm like, that's a lot. And I don't know, what's Smolov, 8 weeks maybe?
I think it's 12 weeks.
Oh, it's 12 weeks, yeah. They ran it, bench skyrocketed. And I questioned myself. I didn't know that much back then. I was like, am I wrong about this? Is this a way to just get a big bench?
That's why you're sitting here, because you questioned it.
And then they ran it back to back. They're like, hey, my shoulder hurts. Like, hey, okay, that checks out. Yeah. That checks out. But yeah, in these programs, at one point, you just have to question, are the marginal benefits worth it right now? Is this small increment that I'm getting in this moment worth the huge amount of collateral that I'm incurring in my life?
Yep. Both
short-term and long-term. Long-term, it's probably going to mess some stuff up. You just push all the time, full throttle.
Yep.
But even short term, in the gym, okay, is this helping progress? Is this skyrocketing, cortisol levels. Am I not able to like work? Am I not able to have relationships? All this stuff. Like, I mean, some of us just take gym as a priority, and that's probably fine, but it does affect other parts of your life as well. So just looking at the marginal benefits, is a collateral worth it?
Yeah.
Like, I haven't done like prep for a meet, but I imagine the last couple of weeks is like, you know what, I got to train, I got to eat, I got to sleep, and then don't talk to me after that.
Yeah, Shal was probably so pissed at me while I was prepping for this meet because I was just brain dead for like 3 weeks leading into it, and I was just useless. But I'm going to look into the camera. I'm going to tell everyone out there, the only thing you need to know about sustainable strength: top set, drop set, decreasing volume over time. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. You just do that. RPE 8. That's the last thing to add. If you do that for the rest of your training career, you'll be fine, and you'll continually get stronger.
Yeah, I remember this guy right here, when we were in high school, we used to do first of all, we were like teenagers, so you probably can handle a bunch of work back then. But we used to do the run every single exercise for every single muscle at the gym. Like if there's a flat dumbbell, an incline dumbbell, a flat barbell, an incline barbell, every hammer machine that you can find, 4 hours at the gym. And then until just when you said that, it clicked. I remember just getting home and just laying for like 4 hours. Like that's the end of the day.
Yeah.
And I'll show up tomorrow and do the same thing, which is not sustainable right now because we have jobs.
Yeah.
But then it was fine.
Yeah. And that's the same thing. That's the small of hypertrophy.
Yeah.
It's just hit everything as hard as you can, as often as you can, and you'll eventually get bigger. And it'll work until it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And then you need to figure something out.
Yeah. Until you have nowhere else to go. Like you can't just continually add sets.
Yeah.
And spend the whole day at the gym, which is just interesting to look at for some people that have been doing it for a long time. Like I worked out 6 days a week forever, and then when it didn't work, I mean maybe 7, but like what do I do after that? Like there's no way I can just keep pushing more and more and more. And eventually I got down to 4, and then got bigger and leaner for a while, and now I ran that progression out, and now we're moving on to the next one, and it's feeling great.
Yeah, exactly. Things need to change. I think that's, I mean, we're kind of being contradictory because earlier you said that like you can do the same shit week over week, and yeah, you can. And that's the majority of what training is for anyone, is that there needs to be repeated effort, consistent repeated effort, but things also need to change. Like you progress something until you can't progress, and then you change it, and then you start somewhere that you're less competent, and you progress until you can't progress, and that's it. That's that wave that you go through time after time. And if you can continually go through that wave, there's going to be peaks, there's going to be valleys, but the overall trajectory of your career is going to be much higher than if you didn't realize that you need to have those valleys in your training.
Yeah, and that, as both a coach and a client, I think has huge value. Like understanding that if we're still going in the right direction, there's no real reason to change whatever we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my clients, we've been running, there's an exercise that has been in his program probably like since we started, maybe like 9 months. And at one point he said, I think this progression is about to stall. And that was like 5 months ago. And then we've like, it hits all the things, it works all the things that he needs to work on. It's still going up. He's getting better at it. And now he can perform a lot other exercises just because his scapula can stabilize better.
Amazing.
So both from a coach, I think you can get impatient and think like, oh, my client, if I give them the same program this week, they're going to leave because they need like novelty or whatever, which maybe like some stuff, there needs to be novelty in there. Yeah. But as a client as well, like understanding I'm getting results. Like I hired a person to get results. I didn't hire someone to get like new programs every week or every month. So I think it's a both side understanding and some level of maturity of I want to get your results. You want to have results. Let's just do the things that gets us both there, and not just like mess around and try and flip flop every week.
Yeah, that's funny because we talked about trust and restraint on the training side of things, but on the coaching side of things, that's just as important. Yeah. That you need to be able to trust in the decisions that you've made and have restraint in the program that you're putting in front of someone, that I know that these things are going to work and they're going to continue to work. And even though I know you want to do something different or you have that urge for novelty in your program, is I'm going to do what I know is best for you. I'm going to trust in myself, and I'm going to have the restraint to pull back on those novelty items. Maybe they're in there every now and then, because you want training to be fun, right? Yeah. We do this because we love it. We love it because it's fun, because we enjoy doing it. But at the same time, it doesn't need to be different. And if you have, the bigger your goals are, the less fun it's going to be, the more restraint there's going to have to be in that program.
Yeah, exactly. And this is like, for this client, for example, like he spent years competitively powerlifting. And now he's like, okay, you know what? Like I want to try and like get healthy. Like my joints need to move better. I'm going to recomp. And now we have so much more flexibility in the things we have to do.
Yeah.
And I think we both have an understanding that it's, these things need to be in your program right now because you broke your body for several years. And we can have fun with like the little other stuff that we're going to throw in there, you know, like if you want to do this, we'll try it out. I'll adapt it to something that will help you as well in your other goals. And I think that's the other spectrum of the coaches that just think, okay, this is exactly what the client needs for the optimal workout, and don't take in any client considerations like, is this person going to actually do this? Are they going to enjoy this? Which, as we're talking about, like if you have a specific goal, if you're like prepping for a meet, you have to suck it up.
Yeah.
But if you don't have like a crazy competition coming up, as a coach, maybe just understand that like that's a person and it's not a computer, and then maybe you have to adapt it a little bit so they actually like what they're doing.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And actually, something I realized as you're saying that is I'm getting older, and the older I get, the more comfortable I want to be.
Yeah.
And these last probably 8 weeks are the first time in a long time that I've actually trained through pain.
Yeah.
And you're not going to enjoy training as much if you're, I'll use the word fearful, but if you're fearful of pain, right? If you know that, oh, fuck, if I catch this 145 clean, my knee's going to hurt for 3 days. I'm like, well, nut up and fucking do it because you have a competition in 8 weeks versus like, you know what? I think I'm good today. I'm just going to double down on the lunges so I can get some stimulus to the lower body. My knee's going to be okay. And I could train tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like there's a maturity to be had around that, but also at the same time, like it's not fun training through pain.
Would you say that maturity comes with like age, progress, competitiveness, or what do you think that?
I think it's understanding the process.
Yeah.
Right. Is that if I'm fearful of cleans above, 140 kilos, then I'm going to be less willing to do them. I'm going to be less committed. And that lack of commitment is going to throw off my technique, my timing, my willingness to get under the barbell. So they're ineffective reps at a certain point. Is that like, yeah, I can probably do, if I know that every clean past 140 is going to hurt my knee, I'm going to be hesitant to get to 140. 145 is going to suck. And then 150 is on the bar. I'm like, fuck, this is going to hurt even more. This is going to hurt for 5 days after. Like, I'm going to have to fucking pound the Advil after this. It's understanding that if I want to have successful reps next week, then maybe it's better for me to stay at 130 this week and just get really good repetition in. I'm still getting a stimulus that's going to transfer to heavier cleans when it needs to. But if I continue to go up in weight and I'm dealing with pain and I'm throwing off my timing, then it's becoming less effective. Yeah. Like I don't need to, the maturity comes from me understanding that I don't need to clean 150 to know I could clean 150.
Yeah. And what I think is important about that is that you've learned that because you spent hours under the bar.
Failure. I failed in so many ways.
Exactly. And I think a lot of people are just like, oh, I read all of the Russian weightlifting programs. I now know how to run your perfect progression.
Yeah.
But if you haven't felt the bar crush you or just miss the attempts or like, I don't know, have pain throughout the years, it's hard to put that into context and understand what it's actually like once you're performing, once you're doing the prep for the meet, once you're doing all this stuff.
Right.
So that's where like the experience and the hours and the reps, I think, are so valuable as a lifter and as a coach, and just like understanding fully the process on both sides of the spectrum.
Yeah, absolutely. And a word that comes to mind when you mention the Russian weightlifters is Stanzanol.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that makes a little bit of a difference too.
Yeah, also that. Also that. But, I think a lot of times that could just be overseen as a quality or something that you pursue. Like knowledge is pursued. And I don't know, the ability to communicate is pursued and all this stuff. But people don't see reps or experience of something that's pursued. They just see it as like, that's something that will eventually happen.
Right.
Instead of trying to get as much of it as you can. I mean, that can be taken several ways. But if you're actively trying to be more experienced at what you're doing and not just like do the reps, because you can mindlessly go through the motions.
Right, yeah.
But understanding what's happening when you're doing it or what's happening when you're coaching someone through it and what went right, what went wrong, what can I make different next time. I think that self-awareness, as in most of the things we talk, that self-awareness will bring a new light into it, and then it can help us like mold the way we'll do it next time, or any of these stances.
Yeah, absolutely love that. And I love the word awareness when it comes to training in so many different ways, because it's, like you said, it's a learning process, right? And if you're aware and if you're paying attention to what changed from session to session, week to week, year over year, is you're actually learning how to become better at training. Right? And the more effective you can be in that process of training, the better your results are going to be, the more informed they're going to be. And it's a little bit different for everyone. Everyone has things that work for them, injuries they're working around. But the more you can internalize that, like any client that I work with, is I tell them that this is a learning process. Like, I don't want you to need me. I'm always going to be here for guidance, but I want you to understand what changes you're making and what the repercussions of are that. Like whether it's technique in a snatch, whether it's recovering from knee pain. I don't want to give you the answer. I want you to learn the things that are going to be able to keep you out of pain, so that you can auto-regulate in your workouts and you can be effective in intervening as often as possible, so you can stay consistent in your efforts in the gym. So it's truly a learning process, and it all stems from education on the proper principles and really being aware of what you're doing and the repercussions of that.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting and very effective method of teaching, and I've learned that from like attending your labs for many years. Yeah, like I don't know, a couple of years now.
Yeah.
And just anytime someone asks a question, the usual answer is, what do you think? What's happened here? What's been happening in the past? What have you tried? And then just trying to get people to make those connections themselves. And like, I mean, you'll guide them there. You'll like take them to where you want them to be. But instead of just telling, oh, this is like, it's like 1, 2, 3, these are the things, and that's what you got to do, and this is what happened. If you can take someone through that process and down the road of understanding like, okay, this is where I messed up. This is what I did different, and this is what I could do now. And just, building that awareness for them, for someone who's never done it, helping them like construct this inside their mind is going to help them just expedite better decisions in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I appreciate you, Jorge, and I'm grateful that we have you on our team. Anything you want to say, the new level 1 class, anything you want to say to the Spanish speaking community that we haven't tapped into yet?
Just for the people who are currently in the L1, I'm excited to see you there, get all the lectures going on. It's a new experience for me. Like, I've been part of the live events, but just teaching to like a virtual group of people every week, that's going to be fun. For anyone who's not in the L1, sign up for whenever you can sign up for the next one. You won't regret it. Get involved with the community. That's probably you learn a lot, but just like meeting the people and getting involved, I think that's probably where the real value is.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it.
Awesome, man. I appreciate you. Where can people find you?
Probably Instagram is the easiest. So my name, I'm going to spell it out. Just JORGEDHOYOS _ Instagram. Send a message, whatever I can help.
Awesome. Thanks for being here, man.
Happy to be here.